Not only do I do this for my generation, people my age, but I'm really doing this for people that are younger than me. I don't know everybody younger than me. And you know some young people, you know some teenagers. Please share this video and make sure it gets to them. I would appreciate that. We didn't start going to church till I was in, I think, the third grade, maybe second. I remember when my mom and my dad was together, we were looking for a church, and it was the most boring thing possible. And then we started going to church with my cousin and my aunt, and they had a children's church, and it was amazing. So we started learning about God, and prior to going to church, before my grandmother was saved, she would teach me about God, but she wasn't saved. Um, she would teach me, God sees everything you do, where God is, how big God is, prayer of your food. Some stuff, I would say normal teachings about God, and then some stuff I think it was abnormal. I remember my grandma telling me at a very young age, I think I was like 3, your dad ran from the calling. Your grandfather ran from the calling. What are you going to do? Are you going to run from the calling too? So who I was to be uh, from a very young age really kind of sat on my mind and kind of sat on my shoulders. And I knew from a very young age I was different. I knew that I wasn't like everyone else. Sounds like a very cocky statement, but I understood that even from that time period. We start going to church. I start learning more about God, learning that you can sing to God, and that He actually likes that. And we call it praise. We call it worship. And when I started doing that, I don't remember how young I was, but I was very young. And I'm just singing with my whole heart to God. And I feel the very hairs on my arm like stand up. And I didn't know what it was, but it was an amazing feeling. I ended up falling in love with God. And I started telling people, kids in my neighborhood about God. I ended up telling my mom about what we were learning and how great this church was. And she ended up getting saved, which was, was great. Now we're going. We're going every Sunday as opposed to every other Sunday or whatever. And I'm telling kids in the neighborhood about God and about church and what we're learning. And my brother is too. And they started making fun of us, started laughing at us. And I quickly realized how we feel about God is not how everybody feels about God. So it kind of made me draw back. I think my brother was more outgoing about God than I was. And long story short, eventually I started to get very quiet about what I loved about God. I started to get very quiet about whatever type of relationship what I had with God at that point in time. I didn't know everybody wasn't cool with God. It's God. I mean, he's big. He's what's not to like. You don't know that much as a kid. But their ridicule and them making fun of me for my relationship or making fun of me for liking God made me draw back. So as I got older, I got more and more quiet about God. I started to watch how kids in the neighborhood moved when it came to God. I started to watch how kids at church moved when it came to God. And I seen that most of them, no, all of them really was just, going about their business. So I felt like that was normal. Let me go about my business too and not be the only one in love with God. Because to be in love with God was kind of, you're a freak, you're a weirdo. And I didn't want to be a weirdo. So I moved along with them. Now, at this point in time, my mom is deeply involved into church, deeply involved in God. I've seen changes in her life. So is my grandmother now at this point. And They're talking to us about God. They're talking to us about the Bible, and we're just not listening. We have little to no interest. Me and my brother, I would say we became like everybody else. They're not interested in God, neither are we. We started doing our own thing. We started following everyone else, how the world was moving. Whatever music they were listening to, we were to. Whatever, however they dressed, we dressed to. We did everything that, well, not everything. We went away from God. We wasn't doing crazy wild stuff. We wasn't with it. We weren't willing to be dedicated. We didn't understand what it meant to be dedicated to God anyway. We thought it was all religion. Dress this way, walk this way, talk this way, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. It was just not cool. Bottom line, it wasn't cool to serve God. That's really what it was. It wasn't cool at all. It was not the great thing to do. It was not the fun thing to do. That ain't how you get no girls. Serving God ain't finna get you no girls. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm out here trying to live my life, trying to do whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And reading the Bible and going to church and singing, that ain't it. So I speed this thing up a little bit. Going into my sophomore year, I lose my virginity. And it's also the first time that I smoke weed. Going into my sophomore year, I believe. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me. Maybe this is not your story, but it certainly is mine. The more sin that I got into, the darker my life became, the more of a spiral my life became. It was fun at first. I mean, it was fun. You get made fun of for being a virgin if you're a man, if you're a male. You know what I'm saying? But now I look back on it, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that. That thing is a gift. You want to give that to that special woman. You want to give that to your wife, your one and only. You don't want to give this one thing that you can only have once. You know what I'm saying? You can only give away once to whoever. And that's just what I ended up doing. So having sex with this one young lady ended up turning into multiple people. I started smoking weed. I started hanging around cats that was in a gang. And it don't take long to get in a gang. I mean, you hang around them. You do whatever it is that they do. I mean, you're committed. Whatever it is they're on, that's what you on. And that's really what I wanted. I seen the women that was around them. I seen the money that was around them. I seen the guns. I seen the lifestyle. It was like everything that they had, I wanted it. And because of growing up in church for so long, it was like I knew nothing. I felt naked. I wanted to learn the game. I wanted to learn the streets. I'm tired of people, thinking that I'm some kind of lame or something like that. I want to get out here now. And so I want to say this goes on for about a year and a half of my life. And each step, each bit of it is just getting worse. It starts turning into more females. It starts turning into more weed, and then it starts going into pills. Then I'm smoking cigarettes, and now I'm drinking. Now I'm hanging around the wrong people. I didn't see it happening as it was going on. Of course, you don't see it, but my life was getting worse and worse, but it seemed like it was getting fun. It got to a point where I started making some very, very, very bad decisions. I got into some legal trouble. I was getting into it with my mom at home. I mean, life started getting terrible. My plans for the future didn't work out. It seemed like this whole idea of being in the NBA wasn't happening. I wasn't even hooping at school. Too busy chasing other things. And long story short, man, my life went dark out of nowhere. Like at first it was fun. It was just, you know, I know I'm doing bad stuff, and see that was the fun thing for me. Like, ooh, this is bad. Ooh, and it felt so good. And then dark. And it was like, what is this? And it was sadness. It was darkness. It was depression. It was suicidal thoughts. It was stuff it was just life I couldn't handle. Could not handle the things that I was going through. And I'm trying to figure out at what point did God start coming in. Was it at Walmart when a group of people say, man, we're on a scavenger hunt, and you fit the exact description of the person we're looking for, can we pray for you? And I was always taught, you know, just let random people pray for you. But it was at this point in my life that it was like, bruh, this ain't no random weird people. Like, this is, you know, this is a sign. This is God. So I let them pray for me, whatever. And then I moved on about my life. And I remember one day I'm smoking weed on my front porch, and God starts talking to me. How do I know it was God? I don't know. But it was him. And that's crazy because I didn't go, whoa. Well, I sort of did. It was like, is this God? And I knew the things that he was telling me and the things that he was showing me was well beyond what my mind could conceive. Just talking to me about my life, talking to me about the decisions that I've been making, talking to me about where I am and where I want to be. God knew I wanted better for my life, but the decisions that I was making was killing me. It was harming me, and it was harming people around me. And that stuff was eating me up. And God would just start talking to me. And this went on for I don't know how long, but so it would get to a point that I would only smoke weed just so I can talk to him. And of course he tells me, you don't have to smoke weed just to talk to me. I'm like, cool, bet. I remember God basically telling me, where could you go? Where could you hide from me? Where could you run that when you get there, I won't already be there? What hole can you dig in the ground and cover it up and try to hide from me, and I won't be in the hole before you make the hole? There was no place that I could run. There was no place that I could hide. God was after me. And I was exhausted. Mentally, emotionally, physically. So I don't know how long this took place, and I didn't give my life to God immediately after that. You know, I still was kind of doing my thing, but you know, he's kind of with me. I remember life falling apart for me on the back of the school bus heading to I was in high school at this time, heading to school, and this person that I put my trust in, because like I said, my life was really spiraling out of control. This person that I put my trust in, it ended up crumbling. Not because of her really, but because of me. But at the same time, she couldn't help me the way I needed help anyway. So, and I remember crying on the back of the bus because my life was so bad. It's early in the morning. I'm crying on the back of the bus. And I'm having suicidal thoughts. And I remember God speaks to me and said, you know, I did not create this life for you to want to take it. You're supposed to enjoy this life. After all that stuff had happened, all the good, all the bad, all the experiences, it made me feel like I was 30 or 40 years old, just all the stuff that I went through. And one day, my mom tells me, we're going to church. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to go to church. And it was a special, you know, it was for the youth. And a Christian rapper was going to be there. I definitely did not want to go hear the Christian rapper. And I'm thinking, Christian rappers ain't nothing but fake imitations of of the real thing. You know, where's his gold chain? Where's his whip? Where are the women? Where are the money? And I feel like God spoke to me in the middle of me thinking all that and was like, if they're rapping for me, why do they need all that? Okay. Yeah, good point. Good point. So we ended up going. And at this point, like I said, God's been dealing with my heart and my life about so much that I'm no longer interested in rappers lying to me. So I'm not going to listen to some rapper talk about, oh, I killed 12 people and da da da. No, okay, that's, you know, I'm not listening to that anymore at this point in my life. I want some truth. And so I'm listening to this rapper, and he says, I was raised in the hood, homie, just like you. You had a rough life. Oh yeah, but me too. So what's your other excuse? And it was just hitting me. All these excuses of why I wasn't living for God. It was just an excuse. You know, and I'm hearing his story. After he gets done rapping, he starts preaching. He starts telling his story. He starts telling what he's been through, which was far worse than me. And he starts talking about what God has done in his life. Then he starts talking about some stuff that I knew he couldn't know, but unless God told him. You know, you want a better life. You want a wife. You want this. You want that. There's no way that you're going to get this stuff unless you're following God. These are all the things that I thought about, all the stuff that I wanted. And he gives an altar call, which is, you know, if anybody wants to be saved, you know, raise your hand and I'll pray with you. I've been in altar calls before, and I felt God nudging me, raise your hand, and I didn't do it. But this time, you know, I knew it was time to give up my life. I knew it was time to surrender my whole life to God. Because I put my trust in other people and they let me down. So I did the next best thing. I put my trust in me. I ain't gonna let me down. I got me. And I let me down. I hit rock bottom so hard, bruh. Oh, I hit rock bottom so hard. And I was like, okay, I'll put my life in your hands. I'll give all of me to you. And that night, you know, I raised my hand, and then they called us down to the altar. And we did a sinner's prayer. God, I am a sinner, and I cannot save myself. But I believe in Jesus Christ and what he did for me at the cross. I confess that he is my Lord and my Savior. Some words like that. And right then and there, it was like years of weight lifted off of me. Years of heaviness. I could breathe. Like life was better. I had peace. I had peace in my mind and in my heart. I remember going outside. And these are some of the immediate things that I noticed after being saved. The birds were chirping. The sky was blue. The grass was green. Man, it was like somebody took shades off of my eyes so I could finally see for the first time. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I can see. That's how I got saved. That's how I ended up giving my life to God. That's why I'm here now. I thank y'all for watching. Love y'all. Thank you for liking it, commenting, subscribing. Please don't forget to do that. I know I got to throw that in there, but appreciate that.